Воду должны.
Ну как мы должны пить? Почему?
Воду, Коль. А это молоко, я просто удивилась. Ну вот, бабушка осталась там. Сразу ей очень понравилось огород.
Кто, не знаю, распускает слухи зря, что живу я без печали и забот, что на свете всех удачливее я.
Толя, ты понял, шестерку давай.
Я Демин Иван Павлович, работаю на стройке 29 лет. За это время, конечно, наша бригада работала во всех районах.
My name is Ivan Pavlovich Diomin. I am 51 years old and have been a construction worker for some 29 years. Most of my work has been constructing apartment buildings in and around Moscow. I'm employed by the state, belong to a trade union, and am paid 340 rubles a month. In addition to my salary, I receive free medical care, a pension, and free education for my children. Also, housing in the Soviet Union is quite inexpensive. We build basically with prefabricated materials, which allows us to construct very quickly. I understand that the rate of building in the Soviet Union is one of the fastest in the world. At times, however, we are critical of the quality of the finished buildings. Since the Second World War, there has been a great housing shortage in the Soviet Union, with many people living in communal apartments, sharing kitchens and bathrooms. At times, there have been 3 generations living in 3 rooms. Nowadays, the government is trying to provide an apartment for each separate family. The plan is for every family in Moscow to have its own apartment within the next 5 to 10 years. Moving into an apartment is a major event in the life of a family. To get to my present construction job, I usually take the metro. My family does not own a car, and there used to be few private cars in the Soviet Union. Generally speaking, our government's policy is to develop public transportation rather than to encourage ownership of private cars. These days, however, there are more and more privately owned cars in the Soviet Union, but they are expensive and sometimes one has to wait a year or 2 to buy one. One of the reasons for the long wait is that many of our cars are made for export. Besides the metro, we have other means of public transportation, and many of them use electrical energy, which helps keep our city clean. There are about 8 million people living in Moscow, the capital of the Soviet Union. Most of the inhabitants are Russians, but there are also many people of other Soviet nationalities living here. Before the 1917 revolution, most of the people were peasants. For example, my wife's parents and my parents were peasants too. Today, most people in the Soviet Union live in cities and work in factories and offices. Moscow was founded a long time ago in the 12th century and became the capital of Russia under the Tsars. Peter the Great moved the capital to St. Petersburg in the 17th century, but after the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, Lenin moved the capital back to Moscow. Many of my married friends do not like to help their wives in the kitchen. But since my wife has a full-time job, I do try to help her whenever possible. My wife, Antonia Ivanovna, is 48 years old and works as a teacher in a nursery. Most Soviet women work, and children have to be left in nurseries. My wife earns 130 rubles per month, and she also enjoys the same benefits as I do. Free medical care, a pension, and so on. Usually on weekends, in mid-afternoon, we have a big meal together. Lately, my son Yura's fiancée, Natasha, has been joining us for these meals since they plan to marry soon. After they marry, they will have to live with us for a while before they get their own apartment. We have 2 bedrooms, living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom, which is good by Moscow standards. But when Natasha moves in, we will be crowded. Our younger son Kolia is 16 years old. He's in the last year of high school. All schools follow the same program in the Soviet Union, and there is a heavy amount of schoolwork. In addition, there are special schools for students who are particularly talented in languages, science, mathematics, ballet, sports, and other subjects. Kolia hopes to enter university and someday become a lawyer. All students must study hard to pass the difficult exams in order to enter university. Like me, Yura works in construction. At 23, he is a supervisor. At night, Yura studies and hopes to become an engineer soon. Many workers dream of improving themselves, and many do through education.
Как вы себя чувствуете?
Хорошо, только кашель остался.
Кашель какой? Влажный?
Влажный.
Мокрота какая?
Так,
Зеленого цвета-то?
зеленый.
Кашель? Курите?
Курю.
Температура?
Нормально.
Слабость, потливость?
Нет, нет.
Вы раздевайтесь, пожалуйста.
Yura has not been feeling well recently, and he had to see a doctor.
Кто?
We do not have to worry about the cost, since medical care is free in the Soviet Union. Because it is free, some people tend to see a doctor for the smallest discomfort. Most doctors in the Soviet Union are women.
Вставляете в рот, кладите на язык в тубус. На язык кладите в тубус. Открывайте рот. Открывайте рот. Угу.
My mother lives with us about 6 months a year, and the other 6 months she lives with my sister in the country. Today at 74, she's retired and receives a small pension. She worked on a collective farm for many years. Often old people, after they retire, help out with things around the household. They take care of children, wait in line to shop, help prepare food, and clean the house. Therefore, old people have a real job within a family and usually are respected. But if their views are old-fashioned, they are seldom listened to. Grandmother is the only person in the family who is religious. But because of her poor health, she seldom goes to church these days. In addition to the Russian Orthodox religion, there are Catholics, Muslims, Protestants, Jews, and Buddhists in the Soviet Union. Freedom of religion is guaranteed by law in the Soviet Union, but it is not encouraged in any way, and the majority of our population does not attend religious services. Worshippers in churches are now mostly old women, many of them widows of soldiers lost during the Second World War. Lenin, Marx, and Engels have given us the basis of our philosophy, and by following their teachings, we are building our society. We believe that the working class, through its representatives, of course, should govern the country, and we hope that someday workers of many other countries will take power into their own hands and shape their own future. For that reason, we enjoy celebrating May 1st, International Workers' Day. On May 1st in Moscow, on the Red Square near the Kremlin, there is a big parade in honor of workers throughout the world. In my family, we all take turns shopping for our daily needs. We combine our salaries and we all decide what should be bought, especially concerning major purchases. To buy and prepare food takes a lot of time in the Soviet Union, in part because we like homemade food, but mostly because prepared and frozen foods are not readily available in stores. After the war, our country developed heavy industry and the military, and invested a lot of its resources into providing social benefits. During that period, consumer goods were neglected. For that reason, we still have to wait on lines for some items. However, consumer goods are becoming more and more available in our stores. After the war, my wife, like most women in the Soviet Union, did not have time to think about fashions. Now, this is changing too. Women today pay more attention to their looks. Besides watching TV or going to the movies, people in Moscow love to attend concerts and go to the ballet and the theater. The theater is a major part of Russian culture, but unfortunately it is often difficult to get tickets. My wife and I especially like to see a good comedy. We used to go out with our sons to the theater, but now they prefer to go out on their own. This is especially the case with Yura, who plans to be married soon after his final exams. We are all looking forward to Yura's wedding and hope to have a nice wedding party. These days, Yura and Natasha spend a lot of time discussing their future plans. When Antonia Ivanovna and I were married, weddings were simple because we did not have much. Today it is all different. The major problem is the apartment. Most young married couples have to live with their parents for a while. For that reason, I'm pleased to work in construction because in my own small way, I can help ease the housing shortage. Because of the housing shortage, couples usually do not have more than 1 or 2 children, just as was the case with my own family. Kolia has to study hard, but whenever possible, he likes to attend sports events. Sports are very popular and are given a lot of attention and support in the Soviet Union.
За третье место награждается сборная команда обществ и республик. В ее составе мастер спорта Маргарита Кокаревича, Даугава, Латвийская ССР. За первое место награждается сборная команда обществ и республик. В ее составе мастер спорта международного класса Лариса Попова, общество Молдова, Молдавская.
Children are given a lot of attention in our country, and we have a joke that they are the only privileged class in the Soviet Union. However, many people think that at times we even spoil them. We are happy to see that they have a better life than we had when we were young. But we would not like them to forget the difficult war and post-war years. For that reason, it is a custom for war veterans to visit schools and give talks to students about what it was like fighting and living during the Second World War. This happens especially on May 9th, our Victory Day against Nazi Germany.
О войне можно рассказать очень много, товарищи. Вы уже знаете, вы читаете книги и все. Но основные эпизоды, которые случились со мной, я вам все-таки расскажу. О Северном Донце что я могу сказать? Это речка Северный Донец, вы знаете, что форсировать ее очень трудно. Она находится, понимаете, пехота на той стороне.
Usually, on May 9th, Moscovites go to Red Square to pay tribute to Lenin, the father of our nation, by passing in silence in front of his grave. We also have a custom of going to cemeteries on that day to honor more than 20 million people we lost during that war. There was practically no family that was not touched by that war. I myself lost 2 brothers, but I do not go to a cemetery on that day because one of my brothers was buried in Germany, and we have never found out what happened to my second brother. On May 9th, many people in Moscow also place flowers on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Because of all the hardships during and after the war, both my wife and I feel grateful for what we have today. Our sons have different lives, different needs, and at times forget how hard we had to struggle for what we have. In our daily lives, like most families, I suppose, we have our small troubles. But generally speaking, I feel that my family does not have any serious problems. We are happy with our sons, and we hope that they will be able to complete their studies on time, start their families, and raise their own children, our grandchildren, in a better world than we have known.
Судьбы, как все, счастье себе прошу.